Goku-san, DBZ, and welcome back for a special top 10 list. For the special top 10 list, I chose music from Final Fantasy VI, which is truly one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, and chose my personal favorite track, extended version for the video, Terry's theme. Hope you enjoyed the music. This is a special best of worst list. I've had a couple of particular loyal subscribers and watchers ask for a while now for me to do a top 10 list of my personal favorite game consoles. Well, not exactly a top 10 list, this is going to be best to worst. Ranking game consoles that I have personally owned. I'm ranking them all. But this is strictly consoles, excluding handhelds. Because I've already, I believe, done handhelds before, so with that said, here it is. Top 10, best to worst, or rather not top 10, but best to worst game consoles. Least favorite to favorites that I personally own. So this is excluding consoles I may have played, but I've never actually owned. So with that said, coming at number 18 of the 18 I have is first the Sega Master System. It is my least favorite out of them so far, but keep in mind, I have so far only played 4 games on the Master System. Ones that I actually own. So, I don't have too much, really, other than a few games so far I've played. One pretty good RPG, and the original classic, of course, Double Dragon game I've gotten to play on it, and 2 on-rail shooters, really good games. Solid, not as good as other games I've played on other consoles, but still, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't dislike the Sega Master System at all. Coming at number 17 is the Nintendo Wii. Yeah, the Wii is my least favorite Nintendo console. But everybody has their own cup of tea and their own taste. I've played more the Wii mainly for the backwards compatibility to be able to play GameCube games on, because I currently don't have a regular GameCube console, though GameCube will still be counted since I can play the games at least. But with that said, yeah, Wii U comes at 17th. Coming in at 16th place, might be surprised this actually gets above 2 other consoles. Coming in 16th is the Panasonic 3DO. Yeah, the 3DO made it up a couple spots compared to others, but that's because of specific games I've got to play on the 3DO, like the original Need for Speed, classics like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and the classic original Samurai Showdown, also games such as Dragon's Lair, and games like Myths. I mean, there's a lot of really good, solid games on the 3DO if you give the console a chance. It's definitely worth trying out, and I've really enjoyed most of the games I've played. Coming in at 15th is the Nintendo Wii U. It makes it up a couple spots higher, because I like some of the Wii U games more than some regular Wii games, to be fair. But I haven't played a huge slew of Wii games, to be fair. Wii U games I've played I've enjoyed more, like, I really like Bayonetta. Pokken Tournament is unique and interesting. Coming in at number 14 is the Xbox One. It makes up a few slots. It's the lowest by far of all the Xboxes, but it doesn't mean I don't like it, obviously. I mean, I do like it more than others, but still, I think it's relatively weak game library aspects. At least of games I've played, though. Doesn't change the fact that it has a couple of games I really love, specifically Killer Instinct, Ori and the Blind Forest, Cuphead, some really solid, really great games I've gotten to play on it. Crimson Dragon, which is really I feel the sole successor to the Panzer Dragoon series. Next, at number 13, is the Nintendo GameCube. I'm sure some people would have the GameCube a lot higher up on their list. For me, no. Don't get me wrong, I love the GameCube. Specifically, I love Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, Metroid Prime, of course, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker. Some really good, solid games, but over percentage-wise of games, there's only a small group of games I really enjoy on the GameCube. That's one of the unfortunate things, and it is a harder console to collect for, mainly because of prices. A lot of GameCube games are pretty pricey nowadays. I mean, Smash Melee, I'd have to shell out at least $60 or $70, and that was the best-selling game on the console, and yet it's that expensive. That says something. Prices are ridiculous. Doesn't change the fact I don't dislike the GameCube, I like it quite a bit. Coming in at number 12 is a cross-combination Sega Genesis with Sega CD. Now, I'm excluding the Sega 32X because that was an add-on, though the Sega CD really was sort of its own console even if you have to attach it. But nevertheless, I mean, Sega CD had some really great games combined with the Sega Genesis. Sega CD had great games such as Lunar 1 and 2, though I think the PlayStation version is the better version. Still, it's a pretty solid game on the Sega CD. There's some great Star Wars games on the Sega CD as well, and of course a great sequel to Eternal Champions. Sega Genesis, need I say more about that combination at 12th place. I really like the Genesis. I feel some of the games have not aged the greatest, though it has many classics, such as, of course, Panzer Dragoon, but Phantasy Star, great JRPG series, Sonic, and Eternal Champions, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2. There's a great amount of incredible games on the console. Doesn't change anything. It has a really special place for me for specific games, but all around. Coming at number 11 is the lowest of all the Sony consoles. In 11th place is the PlayStation 2. I'm sure there's a lot of people disagreeing with me on the PlayStation 2 and probably have it a lot higher on their list. For me, even though I love the PS2, it has some of my favorite games of all time, like Zone of the Enders 1 and 2 by Kojima. Great games like Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Or how about Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 10. I mean, there's a great amount of incredible fun games on the PS2, but I feel compared to specific games on other PlayStations, it just feels a little bit weak to me overall. In comparison, even though it has some of the best fighting games of all time. Soul Calibur 2 and 3, just to name a couple. As well as Tekken 5, Tekken 4. Coming in at 10th place. This is a console that gradually over time has continued to climb up the ladder in the ranks for me. Coming at number 10 is the Sega Saturn. It is such a great, fun console I love. I mean, heck, I even recently did top 10 favorite games of all time for the console. To point out, the reason why I love the console so much, it's for the 2D fighting games. It is a dream machine for 2D fighting game fans, such as myself and others out there. The crossover and some of the greatest Capcom games of all time were on the Sega Saturn. I mean, Nights in the Dreams is one, in my opinion, one of the top 10, probably one of my top 10 favorite platformers of all time. It holds a very special place for me. I'm sure it does for other people out there too. The Saturn is just a very special console, criminally underrated jewel, in my opinion. Coming at number 9 is a console that over time has managed to, at one time was lowering in ranking. Over time, I think specific games has gotten me to keep it in my top, like, 10 of my favorite consoles. That being the Nintendo 64 in 9th place. Specific games that keep it, I think, up there for me is games such as GoldenEye is one of the big ones for me personally. I'm sure other people have other games like the Turok games, which aren't bad. I was never the most hardcore Turok fan, but I will say, on the other hand, I love... Sadly, it was not a great console, to be fair, for fighting games. Even though Killer Instinct Gold is a pretty solid game, I think one of the best fighting games easily on the N64. But it did have a lot of not-so-good fighting games as well. But it had some really great ports as well, believe it or not. Resident Evil 2 actually plays pretty solid on the N64. Mega Man Legends. Great sports games. He had some really good racing games on the N64. Such as, well, Mario Kart 64. Of course, he had Super Mario 64. I mean, of course, I think games that specifically platformers that really stand out for me personally, usually for me, it tends to be more games such as, how should I put this? Probably Banjo-Kazooie is one of my personal favorite platformers of all time on the N64. Though the original Super Smash really has always hold a special place for me, being the very first. Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2. Great games. I love them. Pokemon Snap is a criminally underrated Pokemon game on the N64. There's some really incredible games on the Nintendo 64 people never really gave a chance. I personally feel Conker's Bad Fur Day doesn't deserve as much popularity as it's gotten. I think it's just because it's raunchy and stuff. I'm personally never been a big fan of the crude humor aspect on a lot of stuff, so maybe that's why I don't care much for it. But with that said, coming in at number 8 is the PlayStation 3. The PS3 over time has really come to go up in my ranks. At one time it was definitely not above the PS2, but over time it has managed to surpass it and managed to get above the N64. PS3 for specific titles, exclusives that really stand out for me personally in the area of aspect of storytelling and gameplay. Probably I would say a perfect example of that is the Uncharted series. Specifically for me personally, Uncharted 2 is probably my favorite of the original trilogy. I'm sure most people choose Uncharted 3, but 2 for me is my personal favorite. Of course, can't forget, obviously, a modern classic such as Last of Us, which is probably one of the best post-apocalyptic games I've ever seen. In storytelling, graphics, I mean, alright, it's just a well-done picture of a game. Really solid, underrated gems, multi-platform, but I really like on it. Capcom game, what was it called again? Remember Me. A really good third-person action game that so few people have actually played, even though it has great mechanics. Of course, the re-release of the HD re-releases of the Kingdom Hearts games. Of course, he had the Final Fantasy 13 collection on the console. The 13-2 was the only one that really I enjoyed genuinely, personally. Quickly, before I get on to number 7, a couple other PS3 games that stand out to me personally. Probably, I mean, I really enjoyed Soul Calibur 4 of fighting games. Tekken Tag 2 was a lot of fun. Definitely liked it more than Tekken 6, personally. It is unfortunate, though. The PS3 deserves a lot more respect than it gets. It's too bad most people, when they think of it, they think of first-person shooters, though there's so many better games than just that. I mean, if you want to go first-person shooter, I'm not a fan of Call of Duty, but I will say Killzone is where you go. Great games like the God of War series, great hack-and-slash game experience on the PS3, especially with the trilogy package deal. Coming in at number 7, of course, music from a game in the background for the console. Coming at 7th place is the SNES, as people get, or the Super Nintendo, rather, at 7th place for me. Nostalgia factor is heavy with this one, and specific titles such as, of course, Final Fantasy III, aka Final Fantasy VI, being the very first Final Fantasy game I ever played. Final Fantasy II / Final Fantasy IV. Chrono Trigger, Mega Man X, which arguably is still my top 3 favorite platformers of all time list. I mean, some of the greatest JRPGs and some of the greatest games in general of all time on this console. Secrets of Mana, Illusions of Gaia. I mean, honestly, you have so many great games. Of course, Turtles in Time, Super Metroid, Super Castlevania, um, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I mean, there's Killer Instinct. There's so many great games on the Super Nintendo, it's ridiculous. But even though it holds a special place in Nostalgia Factor, it's 7th place over time period, though it has managed to stay at a pretty sturdy space on my ranks over the years. And that says something about the quality of the Super Nintendo, I think. Coming at number 6 is definitely the newest, and I'm really surprised it's this high already, in 6th place. 6th place, believe it or not, is the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, believe it or not, the Nintendo Switch is actually now probably my favorite Nintendo console of all time, even surpassing the Super Nintendo, which held that spot for quite a few years. So it is surprising, the Switch came in 6th place. Great, though, games I've played. I mean, like I've said, like in modern day, I'd say right now, Super Mario Odyssey is probably my 2nd favorite Mario game of all time. Second only to Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. Also, I will say of games I've played, I have really enjoyed all the indie games I've gotten to play on the Switch. I mean, games such as Stardew Valley, games such as Undertale, games such as Hollow Knight. Eventually I need to try Cuphead out on the Switch. Also, I mean, of great, incredible Switch games, you have the Ultra Street Fighter 2. A return, in my opinion, the definitive version of Street Fighter 2. Also, you have great other fighting games out there. Fighting games I have recently finally got to start playing, I will say I'm impressed, is actually the fact that game being, trying to remember the name of the anime, Dragon Ball FighterZ, actually plays really good on the Switch. In fact, I actually think I might prefer Dragon Ball FighterZ on the Switch to actually PS4, surprisingly. Didn't expect that one. I recently finally played a little bit of The Witcher 3 on the Switch. Downgrade, yeah, but it's actually really solid, and Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered plays incredibly well on the console. But I will say the Switch is great for a great amount of variety of different genres, whether it be platformers, RPGs. I mean, play great games such as Final Fantasy XII, Zodiac War, or Age of Zodiac, Final Fantasy X/10-2, and many other great Final Fantasy games. So, needless to say, the Switch is definitely, I think, an incredible console, and I'm surprised it's already this high. Coming in 5th place is the Xbox 360. Definitely my 2nd favorite of the Xbox consoles. The 360 really has specific games I've really enjoyed throughout the years. Specifically, though, RPG or JRPG wise for me, that holds special place will always be Lost Odyssey. Also, I'm trying to mirror the name of the other incredible RPG I recently finally started trying. Kingdoms or something of, was it Reckoning? Kingdoms of Amour, or something like that. I forget the precise name, I apologize. Also, you have other incredible games as well. Great fighting games on the 360 as well. Great multi-platforms. Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And definitely many good shooting games. Action games like Lost Planet. Great games such as the Fear series specifically has really stood out to me since I recently started getting into the Fear series. Really good. The Darkness, a great comic book based video game. Also really good on it, Dark Souls plays, I think, pretty solid on the console. Also, I have to be honest, of 360 games that I really like, Of course, the Halo games. Halo, though I didn't care much for Halo 2. Halo Reach is good. Halo 3 ODST. Um, Halo. I mean, there's just so many good. Halo Wars. I mean, if you're a Halo fan, you're gonna like it. I need to speed this up a little. Coming in fourth place, the PlayStation 4. One of the more younger consoles, but over time I have come to really love the the PS4. I mean, thanks to modern games like the reimagining, like the newer God of War game, is one of the things that really helped it stand out to me. Great games such as, I think games like Destiny play really good on the console. Games like Persona 5, great fighting games. Let's hear. A racing game I only just barely started trying out, really good. What's it called? Greedfall, No Man's Sky, Soul Calibur 6, A Plague Tale, Innocence, many Assassin's Creed games I've played. Of course, Injustice. I also really like the Okami. Of course, HD Collection. So many good games, honestly, on the PS4. It's definitely had a great amount of stuff. Uncharted 4. Coming in at number 3, the original Xbox. I'm not going to say much other than one thing that really puts this console over the top. Panzer Dragoon Orta. Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Jade Empire, Fable, Halo 1, Halo 2. Need I go on with great games? Dead or Alive 3. And there's so many great exclusives to the original Xbox. Number 2 and number 1 have gone back and forth. Number 2. Recently, things have finally changed ranks after all these years. Number 2 is the original PlayStation, which forever had pretty much always held my number 1 spot. Though recently, after real putting in time and thought into things, I realized special in my heart, specific games. The main thing that always kept PS1 as my favorite console is Final Fantasy VIII. It's the main thing that's always kept it. Though I still love the original PlayStation at number 2, though it has gone back and forth for number 1. But one thing that has always kept PS1 at the top for me is a classic, of course, Metal Gear Solid game. I mean, incredible games like Shinobi, criminally underrated. Specific games though, Final Fantasy VIII, as I said, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. Also, if you want another game, specifics I can point out, Rival Schools, Tekken 3, Soul Blade, and there's too many other original PlayStation games to mention. Lunar Silver Star Story. But nevertheless, console still holds a really special place for me. Always will, because of those specific games. Coming in number 1, which for the longest time was number 2, but in recent times has dethroned and become number 1. The Sega Dreamcast comes in at number 1 for me, personally. Just because the special place I have always had in my heart for the Sega Dreamcast. Games like Skies of Arcadia, Shimu, the original, Soul Calibur 1, which still remains my favorite 3D fighting game of all time. The fact also with a special disc I can play Tekken 3 on the Dreamcast is awesome. Many other games like Sonic Adventures, there's so many good fighting games on the Dreamcast. Mortal Kombat Gold, was it Soul Reaver? Legacy of Kain, another incredible game, and easily the best port of the game as well, of course. Dead or Alive 2, Virtua Fighter 3, and so on and so forth. I mean, the Dreamcast has such a library of incredible games, even though it wasn't even around that long. It's just insane how good the quality is of its library overall. There were not a humongous amount of really bad games, and Capcom showed a lot of love to the console. Project Justice, as an example, Cannon Spike. And if you want another example, Resident Evil Code Veronica. But anyways, this is best of worst, my personal ranks of all the consoles I have at least at one time or another owned. So leave a comment, let me know what is your personal favorite and least favorite console that you own or you've ever owned at one time or another. I'm curious to hear your opinion. What are your thoughts of my personal favorite? Specifically, the Dreamcast being at number 1. But I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.